Welcome to Explore English Online. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Tips podcast. I'm Smith, and I'm here with my co-host, Sarah. If you're tuning in for the first time, this podcast is part of our Explore English Online channel, where we break down helpful tips, share strategies, and answer your questions about learning English. We're thrilled to have you here with us today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. Smith and I know just how challenging and rewarding the journey of learning English can be. Today, we're diving into a topic that's so important yet often overlooked: how to stay motivated on your English learning journey. Because let's face it, there are days when you just feel like giving up, right?
Absolutely. We've all been there. One day you're feeling super inspired, ready to practice, and the next day it feels like the motivation has just disappeared. It's normal. Staying motivated isn't always easy, but it's key to making real progress in English, especially if you're learning as a second language. That's why today we'll be talking about practical ways to stay motivated and actually enjoy the process of learning English.
And you know, the great thing is, you're not alone on this journey. There are millions of people all over the world learning English right now. Some might be in your neighborhood, others might be on the other side of the planet. But we all share the same challenges, like hitting learning plateaus, finding the time to practice, or feeling a bit insecure when speaking. We're here to help you through all of that.
Exactly. And that's one of the great things about this podcast. We get to chat with you about these real experiences, share what's worked for us, and offer tips to make this process easier and, hopefully, a little more enjoyable. So, wherever you are on your English journey, whether you're a beginner just starting out, or you've been studying for a while and need a bit of a motivation boost, this episode is for you.
Plus, we'll be talking about some fun techniques to learn English. So if the idea of traditional study sounds a little boring, don't worry. There are plenty of creative ways to learn that might be more your style. We'll be covering strategies to keep you engaged, simple methods for practicing daily, and even a few tricks for staying consistent.
And remember, learning English isn't a race. It's more of a marathon. There will be ups and downs, and it's perfectly okay to have those moments when things feel challenging. What matters is that you keep going. So, are you ready to dive in, Sarah?
Absolutely. Let's get started. We'll begin by talking about why motivation is so important in the language learning process and some common challenges we all face. Let's go.
All right. So, let's jump right in. Before we get into tips and strategies, let's talk about why motivation even matters so much in learning a language like English. Motivation is really the driving force behind your entire learning journey. If you think about it, without motivation, even the best resources and teachers won't be able to help you. Right, Sarah?
Exactly, Smith. I always say motivation is like the fuel in your car. You could have the best car out there, but if you don't fill it with gas, you're not going anywhere. It's the same with English. Even if you have the best apps, books, and videos, without motivation, it's hard to keep pushing forward. And honestly, learning a language is a long journey, so that fuel needs to keep coming.
That's a great analogy. And I think it's also important to recognize that motivation doesn't have to be huge or dramatic. It's not about feeling super excited every single day. Sometimes it's just a quiet determination, like saying, "Okay, today I'm going to learn one new phrase, even if it's just a small step." It's those small, consistent steps that really add up over time.
Yes. And that's the thing about language learning. It's gradual. You're not going to be fluent in a few weeks, and that's normal. But the cool part is, with motivation, even the small wins feel exciting. I remember when I first started learning a new language, every little thing I could say felt like a huge accomplishment. It's like collecting little pieces, and those pieces eventually turn into a whole picture.
That's a perfect way to put it, Sarah. And I think that brings us to another reason motivation is so important. It helps you stay positive through challenges. Because let's be real, there are going to be tough days. Days when you're frustrated, or when you feel like you're not improving at all. And that's when motivation becomes your best friend.
Absolutely. I know it's so easy to feel discouraged when you don't see immediate results, but if you're motivated, you can remind yourself why you started in the first place. Whether it's to travel, connect with friends, or for career opportunities, having that reason keeps you going. It's like having your own personal cheerleader in your head, reminding you, keep going, you're doing great.
And you know, that's something we hear from a lot of language learners. They often start strong but feel like they're losing motivation as they go. So if that's happening to you, remember it's completely normal. Motivation goes up and down. The key is to learn how to reignite it, even if it feels low sometimes.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why community support can be so valuable. When you're surrounded by people who are on a similar journey, they can lift you up on those low days. Sometimes just hearing that someone else is also struggling or celebrating a win can remind you that you're not alone.
Exactly. And in a way, motivation is what connects you with other learners. There's a whole community of people who have the same goals and are facing similar challenges. And being part of that can give you a sense of belonging. When you share your achievements or struggles with others, it adds meaning to your own journey.
And there's also something to be said about personal growth. Learning a language like English opens up a new world. It challenges you not just intellectually, but emotionally too. You're building resilience every time you push past a difficult grammar rule or try speaking, even if you're nervous. And those small victories, they boost your confidence, not just in English, but in yourself.
Exactly. In fact, the benefits of learning English often go beyond just the language. Studies show that learning a second language can improve your problem-solving skills, memory, and even your ability to multitask. And when you realize that, you start to see motivation as a long-term investment, not just for learning English, but for your personal development as a whole.
Yes. And I think for a lot of people, that idea of growth is really motivating. Like, you're not just learning English to memorize words or grammar, you're expanding your mind. And every time you sit down to practice, even if it's just for a few minutes, you're building skills that will help you in so many other areas of life.
So true, Sarah. And that brings us back to why it's so crucial to stay motivated. Motivation helps you see the big picture. Instead of focusing on today's challenges, it reminds you that each step is part of a journey. And even if progress feels slow, you're still moving forward. Little by little, it all adds up.
Exactly. So if you're listening right now and you're feeling stuck, remember that feeling motivated isn't about being perfect or moving fast. It's about moving forward in your own way. We're all on this path together, and you're doing amazing just by showing up. Keep going.
That's such an important message, Sarah. All right, I think we've laid a good foundation for why motivation is so important. Up next, we're going to talk about some common challenges that can get in the way of motivation, and, of course, how to overcome them. Ready, Sarah?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
All right. So now that we've talked about why motivation is so important, let's dive into some of the common challenges that can make it hard to stay motivated. Because, honestly, there are a lot of them. And if you're facing any of these, just know that you're not alone. It's normal to feel these ups and downs.
Absolutely. One of the biggest challenges, I think, is what we call the plateau. This is when you've been learning for a while and you start to feel like you're not improving. You're putting in the work, but you don't feel any closer to fluency, and that can be really discouraging.
Yes, the plateau is tough because, at the beginning, it feels like you're learning so quickly. You go from knowing almost no English to understanding and speaking basic sentences, and that's exciting. But after a while, the progress seems to slow down, and that's when many people start to feel frustrated.
And I think another big challenge is feeling intimidated or self-conscious. It's scary to speak up in a new language, especially if you're worried about making mistakes or not sounding perfect. That fear can really hold people back, even if they know the words in their head.
Definitely. And, honestly, making mistakes is part of the process. But that fear of speaking can make people avoid practice altogether. And if you're not practicing, it's hard to stay motivated. It's kind of a cycle. You don't practice because you're afraid, and then you feel like you're not improving, which makes it even harder to stay motivated.
Exactly. And then there's the challenge of balancing English learning with daily life. Many of us have busy schedules, work, school, family commitments. It can feel overwhelming to fit English practice into an already packed day. Sometimes people think they have to spend hours studying to make progress, and that pressure can be exhausting.
Yes, time is definitely a big factor. And on top of that, some people also get bored with traditional study methods. Doing the same exercises or reviewing vocabulary lists can start to feel repetitive, especially if you're learning on your own without much variety.
Right. And boredom can make it even harder to stay consistent. If learning feels like a chore, it's easy to start finding excuses not to do it. That's why it's so important to mix things up and find learning methods that actually interest you.
Absolutely. And I think it's also common for learners to feel a lack of progress when they're focusing too much on perfection. They want to say everything correctly, use the right grammar, the perfect pronunciation. While it's great to aim high, that perfectionism can add a lot of pressure and make people feel like they're failing even when they're doing just fine.
Yes. And, sometimes it's that comparison to others that makes things harder too. We see people on social media speaking perfectly or posting about their language achievements, and it's easy to think, why am I not there yet? But everyone's journey is different, and comparing yourself to others can really drain your motivation.
Exactly. That's such a great point, Sarah. So, to sum up, there are a lot of challenges that can make it hard to stay motivated. The plateau, feeling intimidated, lack of time, boredom, perfectionism, and comparison. The important thing is to recognize these challenges as part of the process and to know that there are ways to work through them.
Absolutely. Just remember that it's okay to feel these things. Every learner faces these challenges at some point, and you're not alone. The key is to find strategies to overcome them, which we're going to talk about next. So don't worry if you're feeling a little stuck. That's what we're here to help with.
Exactly. Up next, we'll go over some practical strategies to stay motivated and push through these common challenges. Let's keep going. All right, now that we've talked about why motivation matters and the challenges you might face, let's get into the heart of today's episode. Strategies to keep that motivation alive. These are practical tips you can use in your daily routine to stay excited and focused on your English learning journey.
Yes. And remember, everyone's different, so it's all about finding what works best for you. Let's start with one of the simplest and most effective ways to stay motivated: setting realistic, achievable goals. Sometimes we set goals that are way too big, like wanting to become fluent in a few months. Instead, try setting smaller goals that you can reach in a week or even a day.
That's so true. Small goals can be very motivating because you see progress more often. For example, instead of saying, "I'm going to learn 500 new words," you could say, "This week, I'll learn 10 new words I can use in a conversation." Then, by the end of the week, you can look back and feel a sense of accomplishment. It's all about those little victories.
Exactly. And that brings us to another great strategy. Reward yourself for reaching those small goals. It doesn't have to be anything big. Maybe treat yourself to your favorite snack or watch an episode of a show you love. Rewards make the learning process more enjoyable and give you something to look forward to.
I love that idea. Positive reinforcement works wonders. Now, another powerful way to stay motivated is to find ways to make learning fun. Learning doesn't have to be all about textbooks and grammar exercises. You can explore English through things you enjoy. For example, if you like cooking, you could try watching cooking shows in English. Or if you're into music, learn the lyrics to your favorite English songs.
Yes, that's such a good one. I also recommend things like watching English YouTube channels or listening to podcasts about topics you already love. That way, learning English doesn't feel like work. It's just something you enjoy doing. And don't forget about games. There are so many apps and online games for language learning that make practicing vocabulary and grammar way more fun.
Great point. And here's another strategy. Join a language community or find a language buddy. Learning with others can be incredibly motivating. When you have someone to share your progress with, celebrate successes, and even laugh at mistakes, it makes the journey feel less lonely. Plus, practicing with a friend or in a group can make speaking a lot less intimidating.
Yes! Language partners or online groups can make a huge difference. You don't even need to meet in person. You can find language exchange partners online or join English learning forums. Sometimes just knowing that others are in the same boat as you can really boost your motivation.
Absolutely. And speaking of making connections, one strategy I always recommend is immersing yourself in English as much as you can. Create an environment where English is a natural part of your day. Change the language on your phone to English. Watch the news in English. Or try to think in English for a few minutes each day.
That's such a good tip, Smith. Immersion doesn't mean you have to travel to an English-speaking country. You can create a little English world right at home. Even small actions like reading English labels on products or writing your grocery list in English add up over time. And the more you're surrounded by English, the more natural it becomes.
Exactly. And here's another tip that can make a big difference. Keep a progress journal. Write down what you've learned each day or week. It could be new vocabulary, grammar points, or just how you felt after practicing. Seeing your progress on paper reminds you that you're improving, even if it feels slow sometimes.
Yes. A journal can be so motivating. Plus, looking back at older entries can be a great confidence booster. Sometimes we forget how far we've come, and a journal is a tangible reminder of the hard work we've put in. And you don't need to write a lot, just a few sentences about what you learned or enjoyed that day.
Another useful strategy is to mix up your study routine. Try different methods so that things don't feel repetitive. If you usually read, try listening to English podcasts, watching videos, or even practicing speaking in front of a mirror. Variety keeps things interesting and gives your brain different ways to absorb information.
Absolutely. And speaking of variety, celebrate the little wins along the way. Maybe you had your first conversation in English, understood a song without looking at the lyrics, or completed a lesson you found challenging. These little moments matter, and they're worth celebrating.
Yes, progress isn't just about big milestones. Every small achievement is a step forward. And one last strategy I think is crucial. Be kind to yourself. Language learning is hard, and it's normal to have days when things don't go perfectly. Don't be too hard on yourself if you're struggling or if you don't meet a goal right away. Give yourself credit for the effort you're putting in.
That's so important. Self-compassion goes a long way. If you're too focused on perfection, you can lose sight of how much you're actually learning. Embrace the journey and remember that it's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn.
Exactly, Sarah. So, just to recap, some of the key strategies we covered are setting small, realistic goals, rewarding yourself, making learning fun, joining a language community, immersing yourself in English, keeping a progress journal, mixing up your routine, celebrating small wins, and, most importantly, being kind to yourself.
Yes? And don't feel like you have to do all of these at once. Pick a few that resonate with you and try them out. See what works best. And remember that staying motivated is an ongoing process. It's all about finding ways to enjoy the journey as you go.
Exactly. All right, next up, we'll talk about some easy methods for beginners to practice English daily without feeling overwhelmed. Ready to dive into it, Sarah?
Absolutely. Let's keep going.
All right. So now that we've talked about staying motivated and setting up a routine, let's get into something that's often overlooked, but so important. Keeping things fun. Learning English doesn't have to feel like a chore. In fact, When you enjoy the process, you're more likely to stick with it and keep improving.
Absolutely, Smith. One of my favorite techniques is to use entertainment as a learning tool, so if you love movies or TV shows, try watching them in English. Start with subtitles if you need them, and maybe choose shows you've seen before in your own language. That way, you'll already know the storyline and you can focus more on understanding the English.
Yes, and it's amazing how much vocabulary and real-life expressions you pick up from shows and movies. Plus, it's a great way to learn natural conversational English. Another technique I love is singing along to English songs. Music is a fantastic memory booster, and learning the lyrics can really help with pronunciation and rhythm. Citis.
Absolutely. And don't worry if you don't catch every word at first. Just start with songs you enjoy and focus on singing along. You'll be surprised at how quickly you start understanding the lyrics. And speaking of music, karaoke is also a great way to practice pronunciation. It's fun and gets you used to speaking out loud.
I love that. And here's another fun method. Gamify your learning. There are so many apps and websites that make learning feel like a game. You can earn points, complete challenges, and compete with friends. Apps like Duolingo, Memrise, and others are designed to keep you engaged by making it feel like you're leveling up.
Yes, and some of them even have leaderboards, so you can see your progress and feel motivated to keep going. And speaking of games, you can even play online games with English-speaking players. It's a fun, low-pressure way to practice without focusing too much on studying.
Exactly. And another interactive technique is to start a social media account in English. Post short updates, share photos, and write captions. It's a fun way to practice writing and get comfortable using English in real situations. Plus, you might even connect with other English learners or native speakers.
That's such a great idea. And if social media isn't your thing, you can also keep a daily diary in English. It doesn't have to be long, just a few sentences about your day or how you're feeling. Over time, you'll notice how much your writing improves.
Yes, and it's a personal way to track your progress. Another engaging technique I like is practicing English through cooking or hobbies. If you like cooking, for example, follow English recipes or watch cooking videos in English. You'll pick up vocabulary related to your interests, and it's a fun, hands-on way to learn.
Exactly. And you can do this with any hobby: gardening, art, photography. Find content in English related to things you enjoy. Learning vocabulary this way feels more relevant, and it's much easier to remember words that connect with your interests.
Great point, Sarah. And here's one last technique that can be really fun. Talking to yourself in English. It might feel a little funny at first, but it's a great way to practice speaking without any pressure. Describe what you're doing. Talk about your day, or even pretend you're hosting your own show.
Yes! Self-talk is so helpful, especially if you're nervous about speaking to others. You can practice saying things out loud, get comfortable with your own voice, and boost your confidence over time. It's like having your own mini English practice session anytime, anywhere.
Exactly. And it's a technique you can use daily. So, to recap, some fun techniques to keep learning interesting are watching English movies and shows, singing along to songs, using language apps and games, creating social media posts, or keeping a journal in English, learning through your hobbies, and even talking to yourself in English.
Yes. The goal here is to make learning feel like a part of your life rather than a task you have to complete. The more you enjoy the process, the more motivated you'll be to keep going. So try out these techniques and see which ones work best for you.
Absolutely. All right, up next, we're going to discuss some simple, everyday methods for beginners to practice English without feeling overwhelmed. Let's keep the momentum going. Now that we've covered some fun techniques, let's move on to simple, everyday methods that are especially helpful for beginners. Sometimes, all you need is a few easy ways to practice daily without feeling overwhelmed. So, if you're just starting out, these tips are for you.
Yes. And remember, you don't need to do everything at once. Start small and add these methods gradually into your routine. One of the simplest ways to start practicing is by labeling items around your home in English. You can put sticky notes on things like your fridge, mirror, and even your coffee mug. It's a quick way to learn everyday vocabulary without even thinking about it.
That's a great tip, Sarah. It's such an easy way to immerse yourself in English. Another easy method is to set aside just 5 minutes a day for English practice. It could be reading a short article, listening to a song, or even scrolling through an English language news app. 5 minutes might not seem like much, but it adds up over time.
Absolutely. And for those 5 minutes, you could also try using flashcards. Apps like Anki or Quizlet let you review vocabulary whenever you have a few spare moments. You can create your own flashcards or use pre-made ones. It's an efficient way to build vocabulary and reinforce words you've learned.
Yes, flashcards are fantastic for beginners. Another simple method is to practice speaking with voice assistants like Siri, Alexa, or Google Assistant. Ask simple questions in English and try to understand their responses. It's a low-pressure way to get used to speaking and listening in English.
I love that idea. And here's another easy one. Follow a social media account in English. You could follow a news page, a travel blog, or anything that interests you. Reading short posts or captions in English feels less intimidating than a full article, and it helps you pick up new phrases naturally.
Yes, and social media can be a great source of casual, everyday language. Another tip I like to recommend is to practice shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to someone speaking English and repeat what they say, trying to match their tone and speed. You can do this with short videos or even podcasts.
Yes, shadowing is such a useful method because it helps with pronunciation and fluency, and you don't need to understand every single word to benefit from it. Just listen, repeat, and try to match the sounds. Over time, you'll notice it becomes easier.
And if you're looking for another low-stress method, try reading children's books in English. These books are designed to be simple and use basic vocabulary, so they're perfect for beginners. Plus, they often have pictures that help with understanding.
That's a great tip, Smith. Children's books are fun and often tell interesting stories in a way that's easy to follow. And if books aren't your thing, you can also listen to short stories or watch animated videos in English. There are plenty of channels on YouTube with content for English learners.
Exactly, Sarah. And here's one more easy method. Keep a mini journal in English. Just write 1 or 2 sentences a day. maybe about what you did or how you're feeling. It doesn't need to be perfect. The goal is just to get comfortable putting your thoughts into words.
Yes. A mini journal is a great way to practice writing in English, and it can be very satisfying to look back and see your progress over time. So, to sum up, some simple methods you can try are labeling items at home, practicing with a voice assistant, following English social media accounts, using flashcards, shadowing, reading children's books, and keeping a mini journal.
Exactly. And the best part about these methods is that they're easy to fit into your day. Remember, learning doesn't have to be intense to be effective. Even just a few minutes here and there can make a big difference.
So true. And don't worry if you miss a day or two. The goal is consistency over time, not perfection. Just do what you can and enjoy the process.
Exactly. So now that we've covered some simple methods, let's move on to our final section, where we'll share some additional tips for staying positive and consistent as you continue your English learning journey. All right, now let's talk about something all learners experience at some point: hitting a plateau. You know, that frustrating point when it feels like you're no longer improving, or you're struggling with certain aspects of the language. Learning plateaus and challenges are totally normal. But the good news is, there are ways to move past them.
Yes, and it's so important to remember that hitting a plateau doesn't mean you're not learning. Sometimes it just means you've reached a stage where your brain is adjusting to all the new information. One of the best ways to break through a plateau is to try switching up your routine. If you've been studying in the same way for a while, try something different. If you usually focus on reading, try speaking more or listening to podcasts.
That's a great tip, Sarah. Changing up your routine can really help. Another strategy is to set a new specific goal that challenges you in a different way. For example, if you feel stuck with grammar, try setting a goal to write a short story or a blog post in English. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone.
Yes, sometimes we just need a fresh goal to stay motivated. Another thing to try is reviewing what you've already learned. When you go back and look at older material, you'll often realize just how much you've improved. And reviewing gives you a solid foundation to build on, which can help you feel more confident when moving forward.
Absolutely. And that leads to another great strategy. Don't be afraid to slow down and focus on one area at a time. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when you're trying to improve every skill at once. Instead, if you're struggling with listening, focus on that for a week. You'll feel more progress when you give yourself the chance to master one thing at a time. Sarah?
I totally agree. And remember, it's okay to take breaks too. If you're feeling frustrated or burnt out, sometimes stepping back for a few days can be helpful. A short break can give you a fresh perspective and renewed energy to come back and tackle those challenges.
Yes, breaks can be so refreshing. And here's another tip that helps many people. Celebrate your small wins. Even if it's something as simple as understanding a new word or completing a lesson, recognizing these wins reminds you that you're making progress, even if it feels slow.
That's a good point, Smith. Small wins are powerful, and if you're facing a challenge like grammar or pronunciation, try breaking it down into tiny steps. For example, instead of tackling all grammar rules at once, focus on just one rule a day. This approach makes it feel less overwhelming and gives you the time to fully understand each part.
Exactly. Small steps make big challenges more manageable. And one last tip for overcoming plateaus is to keep a growth mindset. Instead of seeing challenges as failures, view them as opportunities to improve. Every mistake is a chance to learn, and every difficult moment is pushing you closer to fluency.
Yes, embracing a growth mindset makes all the difference. Remember, learning a language isn't a race, it's a journey, and everyone progresses at their own pace. As long as you keep moving forward, even if it's just a little bit, you're on the right track.
That's such an important reminder, Sarah. So, to recap, when you're facing a plateau or challenge, try changing up your routine, setting new goals, reviewing what you've learned, focusing on one area at a time, celebrating small wins, taking breaks when needed, and keeping a growth mindset.
Exactly. Don't let plateaus discourage you. They're just part of the process, and with these strategies, you'll be able to keep moving forward one step at a time.
All right, next up, we'll be wrapping up with a few final tips to help you stay positive and consistent on your English learning journey. Ready, Sarah?
Absolutely, let's bring it home.
So now that we've covered ways to keep motivated and tackle challenges, let's talk about something just as important: creating a positive learning environment. The space around you can really affect how you feel and how well you learn, so it's worth setting up a comfortable, encouraging atmosphere.
Yes, definitely. A positive learning environment doesn't have to mean a fancy study room. It can be as simple as having a quiet spot with good lighting and a few things that inspire you. Maybe a favorite notebook, a vision board, or even a couple of motivational quotes. The goal is to make it feel like a space where you're excited to learn.
Exactly, Sarah. And it's also about making the space work for you. For example, if you study best in short bursts, keep your study materials organized so you can jump in quickly without wasting time looking for things. And if you like music, create a playlist of instrumental tracks or songs in English to set the right mood while you're learning.
Great tips, Smith. And another key part of a positive environment is reducing distractions. If possible, put your phone on silent, close unnecessary tabs on your computer, and let people around you know that you need a little focused time. Even just 15 to 20 minutes of dedicated study time can be really effective.
Yes, those little adjustments can make a big difference. And don't forget to keep your space fresh and interesting. Change things up from time to time, like adding new books or rotating in new materials. A change in your environment can keep you energized and motivated to study.
Good point. And creating a positive learning environment is also about your mindset. Think of it as your own personal space for growth. When you sit down to study, remind yourself that this time is for you, to learn, grow, and get closer to your goals.
Absolutely. So, to recap, building a positive learning environment is about having a comfortable, distraction-free space, organizing your materials, adding things that inspire you, and keeping a positive mindset. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just create a space that supports your learning and makes you feel good about your journey.
Exactly. Remember, learning English is a personal journey, and creating the right environment makes it that much easier to enjoy the process. A little positivity goes a long way.
Well said, Sarah. Up next, we'll wrap up with a few final words of encouragement as you continue on your English learning journey. All right, as we near the end of our podcast, let's dive into some practical tips for ESL learners to stay consistent on their journey. Consistency is key to language learning, but it can be tough to maintain. So, we've got some strategies to help you stay on track.
Absolutely! One of the best ways to maintain consistency is to create a learning schedule. Whether it's 15 minutes a day or an hour 3 times a week, having a set time for studying helps make it a habit. Try to choose times when you're most alert and focused, and treat that time like an important appointment.
That's a great point, Sarah. And to keep that schedule realistic, start small. If you're new to studying regularly, don't overwhelm yourself with long study sessions. Begin with short, manageable chunks of time, and gradually increase as you feel more comfortable.
Exactly. And speaking of manageable, another tip is to mix up your study activities. Variety helps keep things interesting. One day, focus on reading, the next on speaking, and the following on listening or writing. This variety not only makes learning more enjoyable, but also helps you improve in different areas of the language.
Yes, variety is key. And let's not forget about the power of setting clear, achievable goals. Instead of saying, "I want to learn English," try something specific like, "I will learn 5 new words a day," or "I will finish 1 lesson of my app each day." Goals give you direction and something to work towards.
Absolutely, Smith. And when you reach those goals, celebrate those achievements no matter how small. Whether it's treating yourself to something nice or just taking a moment to appreciate your hard work, acknowledging your progress boosts your motivation to keep going.
Exactly. And another helpful tip is to find a language partner or a study group. Practicing with others can make learning more enjoyable and hold you accountable. You can share tips, practice conversations, and motivate each other to keep up with your studies.
Yes, community is so important. If you can't find a local partner, consider joining online language exchange platforms or social media groups where you can connect with other learners. It's a great way to practice and make new friends.
And if you're studying alone, try using a study tracker. It could be a simple calendar where you mark off each day you study, or an app that tracks your progress. Seeing your consistency visually can be a huge motivator to keep going.
Good idea. And remember, it's okay to have off days. Life happens, and sometimes you may not feel like studying. On those days, try to do something low-key related to English, like watching a short video or listening to a podcast. This way, you're still engaging with the language without the pressure.
Yes, it's all about keeping a flexible mindset. So to sum up, some key tips for staying consistent include creating a study schedule, starting small, mixing up activities, setting clear goals, celebrating your achievements, finding study partners, using a study tracker, and staying flexible with your learning.
Exactly. Consistency doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It's about finding a rhythm that works for you and sticking with it as best as you can.
Well said, Sarah. Now, let's wrap up with some final words of encouragement to help our listeners stay motivated and inspired on their English learning journey. And here we are at the end of our podcast. We've covered a lot of ground today, from understanding the importance of motivation in language learning to practical strategies for overcoming challenges and building a positive learning environment.
Absolutely. It's been such a great discussion. Remember, motivation is essential, especially when you face those inevitable plateaus. We talked about how to shift your mindset, set achievable goals, and create a supportive study space. All of these elements are crucial in keeping your motivation high.
Exactly, Sarah. And we also discussed common challenges that learners face and offered various strategies to break through those barriers. From mixing up your study routine to finding study partners, there are so many ways to keep your journey engaging and rewarding.
Yes, and we shared some fun techniques to make learning English enjoyable, along with simple methods that beginners can easily incorporate into their daily lives. Remember, every small step counts.
And let's not forget the importance of consistency. Building a routine that works for you and finding ways to stay accountable will help you keep moving forward, even on tough days. It's all about progress, not perfection.
Absolutely. As we wrap up, we want to encourage you to keep a positive mindset and embrace every moment of your learning journey. Celebrate your successes, no matter how small, and don't be afraid to seek help or connect with others. You're not alone on this journey.
Right. Learning a language can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding. With each new word you learn, each conversation you have, you're getting closer to your goals. Stay curious, stay engaged, and keep pushing yourself.
Thank you for joining us today on the English Learning Tips podcast. We hope you found these insights helpful and inspiring. Keep practicing, keep learning, and remember, every bit of effort you put in brings you one step closer to fluency.
We're rooting for you. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and share with your fellow English learners. Until next time, happy studying and take care.